Hello and welcome to the Story Behind the Stories, your weekly look at the pages of the Neepawa Banner Press. Thank you very much for taking a little bit of your time and spending it right here with us on NAC TV. I'm Eoin Devereux, the host of the Story Behind the Stories, permanent host as it were. I've turned into the Bob Barker of the show, I guess. But this week, our rotating guest panel today is the man who brings it all together in terms of NAC TV and the Banner and Press itself. Ken Waddell. Ken, good to have you in again this week.
That's good. I got my summer look now. No jacket, no hat, my beautiful silver fox hair.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, yeah, that's what they call you around town, Ken.
Silver fox.
To your face, yes.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Well, we got so much to cover right now, so the best way to get into it is just to get into it quickly, and that's what we're going to do with the front page of this week's edition. It was a fair time that was had by all, and we're talking about the Neepawa District Chamber of Commerce annual fair. This year's event, it was bigger and better than ever. If you pick up a copy of the paper, you can see it with your own eyes. We've got a montage of a variety of different pictures from the event that you can find on page 1, and as well carries over onto page 19 of the paper. And I gotta say, Ken, I don't know if you had a chance to go down to the ag grounds yourself, but I did. And I was thoroughly impressed with what they brought to the table this year. It was a tremendous put together event.
Yeah. Well, I saw it, and I actually, it was a town-wide yard sale, so that's where my wife and I were a lot of Saturday. But two different people, staff couple and the ownership couple from the shows came down and to our yard sale before they opened up, and quite a nice chat with them about that. And they reminded me that they actually were in Neepawa many years ago. They'd set up at the Yellowhead, and I'd forgotten that they were there, but we had another company, or the Chambers had another company coming in between. This seems like a little bit larger, more robust show, which is kind of cool. And when I look at the paper, I can't figure out what's that great big bicycle wheel doing in the middle of the fairgrounds.
Well, fortunately, you got an answer to that on the front page as well. Just underneath it, you can see that picture. They call it the Ring of Fire, a little setup that goes around and around and around. I didn't go anywhere. That's as close as I got to it, Ken, to take that picture. And I used the wide lens as well, because I do not do rides.
You do not ring a fire? You
don't,
don't,
no. And again, I don't know if I've told this story in the past on the Story Behind the Stories, but I'll just go into it a little bit, because that's what this show is about. It's talking about the little nuances away from the print page. And again, like I said, I don't go to fairs, and I don't go on fair rides. And the reason for that is I remember the last fair ride I went on to was a roller coaster. It was an amazing indoor roller coaster, all these twists and turns and flips and all that. It was a lot of fun because I was a kid. I was maybe about 13 years old at the time, and it was a lot of fun. It was a field trip. And then the next day we left the where the park was, because we were traveling the West Coast for Expo 86. Ken, you remember that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was a whole heck of a lot of fun. And I remember my classmates and I were talking on the bus as we were going to Expo 86. And we were talking about, oh my goodness, did you hear what happened with the roller coaster? Did you hear what happened at the amusement park we were at yesterday at the West Edmonton Mall? We were at the West Edmonton Mall. We rode on the roller coaster at the West Edmonton Mall one day before that fateful crash in which the roller coaster broke, came off its moorings, and ended up killing several people and injuring several more. I remember that day vividly. There's certain things that we all remember etched into our mind, and that's one of the first ones that pops into my head. And now that I've depressed you about that, let's talk about the fun rides. But again, that's a reason I do not go on rides.
Well, they're not for everybody, and at my age, I don't take jerking fast motions of any kind. But anyway, the last time they were in town, I actually went on one of their rides. I actually went on the Ferris wheel. only been on a Ferris wheel twice in my life, and
Yep.
they're great. They're fun.
They're slow, fortunately.
I don't particularly like being that high up in the air. But anyway, a lot of people did. A lot of people had a great amount of fun. The kids were going through there and buying their X number of dollar ticket package so they could ride all day long. And I understand from, I did, it was after we actually went to print, I did have a short talk with Jennifer at the Chamber office, and she said it looked like it was a very successful fair in terms of financially for the Chamber. So we'll be following up with that to give people a report on how that went, because all these things are great to do, but if they don't cover their costs or make some money, it's kind of hard to put them on again.
Most definitely, and that was the case. Just pardon me, just a little bit of the sweat going right here, right now. It got me under the lights, as it were. But that's the great thing about this. It was interesting. We have several different individuals who went out and got pictures. Myself, Casper Wehrhahn, went out and got a few pictures from several different events. And I'm very appreciative of an individual we partner with, John Luigi Pito, who does a lot of the drone flight pictures. He was able, I ran into him actually at the event. So John, very appreciative that you were allowing us to sort of use these fantastic pictures. They really show the scope and the width of the fair, as it is much bigger. But it was interesting, Ken. I was talking to Casper there on Monday after the event was over. Much like you, I was involved throughout most of the morning on Saturday with the community garage sale. I was actually participating in it. And after 2 o'clock, I went down there, and it was sunny. The sun peered out. It popped up. It got nice and warm, but not too warm. It wasn't hot. It wasn't humid yet. It was pleasant. It was appealing. It was a perfect weekend day. And I went down there, found parking way down the ag grounds because there were so many vehicles there. And I went walking, and I walked through, and the amount of people there was amazing. I don't remember, in all the years I've gone down and covered the event, I don't remember that many people there at one time. It was really, really well done, which is ironic because when I spoke with Casper, who went to the event an hour and a half or 2 hours earlier, they said there was hardly anybody there. So I guess it's all about timing.
Well, they all had to be at the yard sales. Maybe there couldn't be two places at once, I guess.
Exactly, yeah.
We must have had 80 people through our yard, and I mean, we just had some stuff. It wasn't high-end stuff that we were selling, so.
Oh yeah, most definitely. That was another thing as well. Great to be able to participate in the community-wide yard sale. Spoke with a lot of people, not just from Neepawa, but from outlying communities that popped in, and that's a big part of it. The Chamber wants to bring in those outside dollars, as it were, to contribute into the community and to sort of get into our revenue streams. So not just even at the fair, but again, citizens of Neepawa. I didn't sell a lot, but I sold enough that, I was able to put in a tank of gas, Ken. That's how much I sold, so that's impressive. That is thoroughly impressive, isn't it?
That's a good deal.
Oh yeah, but it was a great event overall, and very much looking forward to seeing what type of numbers come out of it from the Chamber of Commerce. And as Ken said, we will be covering that story in a future edition of the Neepawa Banner Press. So let's roll on to another event which is just as fun and festive, if not more so. That has become a tradition right here in Neepawa. The Filipino Heritage Month occurs throughout June. It's a celebration of Filipino culture and, of course, their nation, independence, and whatnot. And every year it seems to get a little bit bigger, a little bit better here in Neepawa. And that's why on page 2 of this week's edition of the Banner Press, you can find a story talking about the preparatory work that goes on for that. Casper Wehrhahn has that story in which they're talking about all the things that do go on. And I've been able to attend it a couple times over the years, Ken. I think 2018 is the one that most jumps out at me off the top of my head. I attended last year's as well. Last year's was a lot of fun. But I think it was 18, perhaps it was 19, but it was so huge. It's just so amazing, especially the parade. I mean, the organizing groups locally really put together something special.
Yeah, and something that maybe people who have lived in Neepawa or the area for a long time don't maybe fully understand is that the various groups of Filipino people here are from different areas of different regions, different provinces, whatever, of the Philippines. And so they tend to band together and put on something that's special for their area. So there's a really intense competition to have the best float or the best presentation for their district.
You're right. I do find that interesting. It almost has a, and when I say this, some people might take that as an insult. It's not intended as an insult, but they take very much almost an American style mindset towards their regions, or in America's case, states. You know, if you talk to an American, it's like, I'm a Texan, I'm a Californian, I'm a New Yorker. That type of mindset. In Canada, we kind of have that, but not to the same degree. When we're out and about in the world, I think most of us just go, I'm a Canadian.
Yeah.
But again, there's nothing wrong with that. Having that sense of regional pride, I think is fantastic.
No, they take it very, very seriously, and anybody who can be in town on the 17th. Also, I think this weekend, too, there's a kind of a preliminary event that's leading up to this, and so there's lots of stuff going on. So it's well worth the trip to Neepawa to see what's happening over the next couple of weeks for sure.
That's right. If you want those details, you can find them, of course, on the pages of the Neepawa Banner Press. That story from Casper is on page 2 of this week's edition. Very glad to be able to sort of showcase that. It's something we're going to be obviously following up on in the weeks ahead. All right. Let's talk a little bit. This is sort of sports related, and it's not one I wrote, Ken. So Casper again did a great job chasing down some of these leads. And there is a family in the area, in the community, that has been very successful on a local, on a provincial, and it sounds like even on a national stage when it comes to the game of darts. The Bunda family, and you can find this story, it is on page 11. Karen, Keisha, Karel, and Arnell Bunda. And if I mispronounce those, I do apologize. I always hate it when people mispronounce my name. Okay, maybe I don't hate it. I'm used to it. Over 50 years, just sort of get used to that. But I do apologize if I did mangle it slightly. But they're a family that enjoy the game immensely, and I can understand why. I mean, I was born in Ireland, so we're familiar with playing darts and having a pint in your hand. You know, that's something you learn at a young age. I remember vividly, Ken, growing up, my mother and father, along with my aunt and uncle, who also lived in Thompson, Manitoba, up north, all the families would get together, they'd have dinner, and the parents would go down to the basement and they'd play darts. They'd have a beverage or two, you know, and the kids would try and stay out of trouble.
And out of the way of the darts.
And out of the way of the darts. And if you did get in the way of the darts, what did you learn? You learned not to put your hand up when I'm about to hit a bullseye. But
this is a good story, though. They're a lovely family, and they're obviously beaming with pride and happiness of what they've done there. A picture is on page 11, and as Owen said there, but very happy for them. And it's not something that's really that common in Western Canada. So it's really cool that they've been able to excel and move on provincially and nationally.
That's the weird thing. I find that's amazing because, again, sometimes you grow up with certain things and you just think that everybody participates in it. Up north, families just participated in darts. It was huge at the time, but this was the 70s, early 70s and 80s and whatnot. Times change, sort of things like that happen. But it's wonderful to see that the sport is still thriving on this local level. And it takes a lot of skill. I've tried to play darts, Ken, and I do not have the hand-eye coordination. I definitely don't have the eyes for it, as you can tell.
Even with the beer in your hand, in the other hand?
Well,
it doesn't balance off for you?
Well, usually I'll try and hold 2 beers in my hand.
That doesn't work.
That's efficiency. But no, it's great that they were able to participate in this as a family and be so successful at it. So if you want to learn a little bit more about the results from the Nationals, you can find it. It is on page 11 of this week's paper. It's hard to segue sometimes from one story to another.
Yeah.
It turns into almost a bit of a whiplash. This next story, it's an emotional story. It's a hard story to sort of deal with because of the emotions involved, but it's still a story that we need to cover. We need to share with the community, and we're very thankful to the family and the community of Carberry for helping, letting us in on this, and letting us be a part of it. Kalina Green Memorial event was held over the weekend on May 27th in Carberry. Once again, Casper really did all the work this week when it comes to writing, and very appreciative of that. And once again, this is another great example of it. Casper went down to Carberry, covered it live, spoke to the individuals, got pictures from the event, and they were very impressed and inspired by all the festivities that were put on there. Again, for it almost, I don't want to sort of mismanage the telling of this story, Ken. Is there anything you can sort of share with us on this?
Unfortunately, yes, I can, because I know the family very well, and I know some of them very, very well. And tremendous loss here. Kalina Green, life ended early, and the good news is that the family stayed strong and the community came together, and they're doing everything they can in terms of mental health initiatives and encouraging people to reach out when they need help, because usually people know they need help, but I've known from many instances, been around a long time, and people tend not to reach out, and so it's a message that we have to keep putting out there for people. They've done it in, as the headline in the paper says, overwhelming and beautiful, and it's the story is certainly overwhelming. The response, though, is both overwhelming and beautiful, and a tribute to the family for doing what they've done, and for all the friends. As I say, I know most of the family, and I know a few of them very well, and it's been a tremendous shock what happened to Ms. Green. We hope it never happens again, but unfortunately it has happened in our coverage area, unfortunately, several times in the last 12 months. And so we're very, very conscious of that, and want to do everything we can to encourage people to reach out to others, and those who are really stressed out to reach out. You can get mad, you can cry, you can ask for help, you can rail, even the preachers will tell you can rail against God if you want, because he's strong enough to take it. So whatever you need to get through situations, and I think that's the message here. So.
Most definitely. You couldn't have said it better, Ken. Really, a story like this, it's difficult to deal with the emotions. Even though we, as communities, community of Neepawa, community of Carberry, are growing, we're still small communities, and that's tight-knit. So when something like these types of incidents can occur, it's difficult. It's hard on everyone. So we are so appreciative of Carberry and everyone involved with that for sharing that with us, so that we can share it with you if you were unfamiliar. And so
there's one other little note about Carberry too, is that one of our staff was in Carberry and was approached and asked, if we could get more articles and stories from Carberry, and we appreciate that sentiment, but understand there's Eoin and Casper are the two reporters, and I do a little bit of writing, but not as much anymore. And just phone us, just call us, email us with story leads or with pictures. We can't be everywhere. It's well over 100 miles from north to south from our coverage area, from Carberry to St. Rose, and it's about 70 miles east to west, basically from Newdale to Langruth, Gladstone, etc. So we are very open. We don't want to use government press releases in the paper. We don't want to use corporate press releases unless they're buying ads to go with it, to be quite blunt about it. But in terms of community news, we are more than open to that, and would really appreciate anything you send to us. We will try our best to get it in the paper. We can't possibly attend everything that we would like to attend.
That's right. And again, we do take personal pride in being one of the few papers, community papers, that don't, for the most part, use a lot of filler when it comes to provincial press releases, national press releases, because we know you can find that information. You can find it online. You can find it on Google. You can hear it at your 6 o'clock news on the television. You can hear it at the top of the hour on any one of the radio stations that still does news, even though those stations are getting fewer and far between, unfortunately. You can hear and find that news elsewhere. What you can't find is these types of stories, these community stories that we've talked about. There's only a few spots you can find them, and this is one of them. So we do take pride in that, and we do appreciate your help when you do give us that help. And we do ask, once again, as Ken said, any and all support is always greatly appreciated.
Just one other quick thing. You've talked about, Owen, when you used to work in radio, and the radio news cycle is now down to about 3 minutes or 4 minutes. Eh?
Yeah.
And
if that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's news, weather, and sports. And the thing is that with the newspaper here is a plug for newspapers, unashamedly, unabashedly, a plug for newspapers. When they read this paper, and they don't get to read it all on NAC TV, I believe it takes an hour. I challenge you to try and read this paper in an hour. So you're getting an hour, hour and a half of news if you put it into the verbal format like radio does, versus 3 minutes on radio.
Yeah.
So we're a good deal. Honestly, we are a good deal. Anyway, I'm holding up the process here.
Actually, no. And again, I'll continue on this way, because this is what it's about. If you want the details specific of the story, you can always watch NAC TV Reads the News. They do such a thorough job of it. These are the little nuances away from the print that we talk about right here. And it brings up another thing. Recently, it was announced last year that my former employers at CKLQ and Star FM 94.7 in Brandon, they were locally owned, they were locally operated, they were community owned, but they're not community owned anymore. The deal went through last week, in which a national broadcast company is going to be taking them over. And business is business, but at the same time, that's unfortunate. Everything in Brandon now is owned by somebody who does not live in Brandon. And that means they don't care about Brandon the same way. Why would they?
They care some, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
It's an end of an era there, and it's very unfortunate. So community newspapers, community radio stations, community television, it all matters, and it needs your support. So here's the pledge drive. Here's
community owned.
Exactly, and community operated, and we're glad to be able to share it. The official grand opening for Neepawa Home Hardware. It occurred last week. I was able to attend it myself in person, get some pictures, and get the story from Michelle Gerard. She was the spokesperson, the representative of the ownership group. She's the face of the group, as it were, and she is so overwhelmed and so pleased by the support that not only the community gave throughout the process, but fellow franchise owners throughout Western Manitoba, head office for Home Hardware, the Neepawa Chamber, representatives from the town of Neepawa, and most importantly, her employees who helped during that process. This event, which took place on the 24th, was a celebration for all of them. So it's wonderful. It's been open for a while, almost 2 months to the day it's been open, Ken. But this was sort of their official, finally, they had everybody, they could get them together, they could cut a ribbon, that type of thing, and have a little bit of celebration.
Yeah, I was there, and there's a whole sea of red jackets there, and then she calls her staff forward, and only half of the red jackets came forward. Then I realized the other half of red jackets are fellow dealers from other parts of Manitoba. So she had tremendous support from fellow Home Hardware. I know the Onum Nolan Dauphin ownership was there, for example. I had a chance to talk to them, and so it was impressive. There's no question about it. And that follows up on just a couple of weeks ago, the competition
Yep.
for this with the co-op opened, and I was talking to Brian Headley about that, and we had each had different stories where people say, "Oh well, there's too many people in the business or whatever," and we can document you. Brian Headley can do it. I can do it. And I'm sure Michelle could as well. That when you have competition, the total sales go up. If one business moves out of town, the sales can stagnate or you can even go down. And so that's interesting because we're very fortunate here to have two very good lumber home center operations in Neepawa again. And so it's good to see.
That's right. We only got a few minutes left, so we're quickly going to delve into a couple things here. Some of our opinion editorial columns. Delcy Martin, who you may be familiar, has been a registered social worker student, but now she's a registered social worker. She's been doing a feature for us almost on a weekly basis called Your Listening Ear. After a little bit of a break of hiatus, Delcy is back now. She will be doing it on a monthly basis. She has finished her practicum. She has finished her studying. She is now certified. So congratulations to Delcy. We do appreciate this column. You really bring some great perspectives on it for us. So we're going to be very glad. It's going to be the first edition every month that it's going to be appearing in moving forward. Yeah. And just very quickly, Ken, I wanted to give a minute or two if you wanted to talk a little bit about your column. I mean, you really sort of you brought it this week.
Well, thank you. Read the column. It's titled "Thought Dictators." And after many years of writing columns, I've been actually in publishing now for over 55 years, believe it or not, but writing actively for about 40. And all that experience and all life experience brought me to this thought dictators. Is that Eoin and I, for example, do not agree on everything. Surprise, surprise.
You're wrong about that, Ken.
Yeah, we do agree on everything, right? We don't agree on everything, but you don't have to be disagreeable to disagree. And we respect each other's opinions, and all that we're asking is that everybody respect someone else's opinions. But there's a difference between opinions and facts. Opinions change. Facts shouldn't. Sometimes they change too. And so I just thought dictators. There's too many people in the world today trying to tell us what we should say, what we should think, but more importantly or more harmful, what we shouldn't think and what we shouldn't say. And that's just wrong. I've changed what I say and what I think over the years. Hopefully everybody else does too. But this column this week is a very strong defense of free speech and respect for other people's opinions.
That's right. Now, if you do get a chance, and again, like I said, as Ken said, we don't agree on everything, but there's certain things we do agree on, and sometimes I'll put something out there and I'll say, no, I think maybe this way because of this, and it's like, okay, I didn't see it that way, I understand that perspective, and sometimes I'll do it for Ken. As Ken, maybe I suggest this, and this is the reason why. Sometimes he says, okay, I understand that, and sometimes it's like, no, and that's the way it should be, that little back and forth. We need a little bit more of that in the general world.
Yeah.
We really do. So whether you agree or disagree with any of our columns or any of our information, we always do appreciate some of your time, some of your effort, and some of your support. So if you do have any information, any news stories, a letter, a thumbs up, thumbs down, you can always forward it our way over at news@neepawabanner.com. Or you can give us a call at 476-3401. That's the number, the main office. As long as you're not yelling or cursing, the front office will maybe send it our way. Or maybe if they are yelling and cursing, they'll send it our way quicker. So,
yeah.
But again, we always appreciate your support and anything along those lines. So. And that's pretty much wraps it up. There's so much more we could have talked about, but there's only so much time on the show. So that's why you got to pick up a copy of the Banner Press for yourself. So again, Ken, thanks as always for stepping up and stepping in.
You're welcome.
And again, thank you. We appreciate you taking the time and tuning in to NACTV each and every week and learning just a little bit about the stories behind the stories.